Hey guys, here to get into one of my all-time favorite Robert Altman films, that is Nashville, which came out in 1975. I love this film so much because it's a very impersonal glimpse of modern society, basically. And this happens to be set in the 70s, and it's certainly very 70s and what it reflects, but it's quite timeless within the details and layers of literally 24 characters, 24 stories going on, interwoven in the scope of slightly under 3 hours. That is insane. And I think that taking this in more and more, particularly having grown up in Tennessee myself, this film just makes a lot of sense socially to me. You see a lot of the behind the scenes feeling, and it's again portrayed very impersonally. So again, what the realistics of what's going on in this film is very different from my youth, but the foundation just adds up to me psychologically, which is what a lot of these films that were very ahead of their time were doing. Which Robert Altman is a man very ahead of his time. He's working in the 70s, and his films have a very timeless legacy. When I watch them, they feel very modern as the films of Paul Thomas Anderson, who that is, Paul Thomas Anderson looked up to Robert Altman more than any other director, but Robert Altman had a very unique take on just getting having a loose energy, but being really deep with his loose energy. I think that's kind of the basis of what makes this film so appealing, and just the way you can just kind of get into the drift of characters, and the way the dialogue can just paint a picture. Again, I'm really back to that comic book feeling and spirit. This film kind of has this feeling of just slice of life. You're just picturing, okay, there's one thing that happened, and you almost feel an indifference of how you actually feel emotionally about the situation. You could say that the coldness might lie in a lot of films of getting very close to characters. This is a film that Robert Altman's not actually cold. I think what he expresses, that's what makes him a genius. And again, I look at Robert Altman as like, yeah, you're the man. So because he is expressing a friendly perspective that actually holds up at the end, because he's a man who seems like he sat down and have been very, very frustrated by a lot of what's going on in American politics, just every society, everything around him in the 70s. So, but he had his foundation of like a peacemaker kind of foundation to him. Like, I want to make it better, but by showing you where it's gone wrong in a very, very subtle kind of ways. There's an eye for all these storylines. There's a lot of a full glimpse of light and dark. There's characters as tragic as serial killer, literally. Like, he's out there, literally just with raw rage and jealousy of everyone around him. While you have characters who are as nice as like they're the superstar, and everyone loves her kind of thing. And this is like the ultimate attention thing, and this kind of builds up. Again, all these characters, you have one of the coolest guys, which is Jeff Goldblum. Excuse me, on the motorcycle. But I don't know, the way this film is paced, it's like every single moment I'm just reeled in, wanting to know more and more of what happens, because it always feels like there's something that's always worth revisiting in this kind of thing. And I would definitely call Robert Altman a very unique kind of genius, And I think this is the second best. I mean, Three Women is my favorite film maybe. This is very close, because Three Women goes into abstract territory that's even deeper subconsciously. But this film is perfect at what it does. Absolutely perfect. And I just really feel like I see what America really was looking like at this time and age. It feels like something was gone cynical, basically. I almost hate. I feel hate, but then it's like, well, I love it too. So it's like a bipolar almost attitude. But he ends up landing the friendly end quite perfectly. And I've heard he's one of the best men ever to work on the set. Everyone actor says he's just so freaking cool on set. So there's a man who just feels like we're leaving a reward for giving into what's going on. And that reminds me a lot of the Bob Dylan folk energy of just, at first it can almost seem tiring if you're not exactly in the mood for it. But if you are in the mood for it, more of the love mood kind of feeling, I suppose this is like the dead end of that love feeling. It's like, I'm just tired at this point, but I'm also maybe more fascinated than ever at what I want to understand here ultimately, which is a glimpse of people who are striving to move forward past very difficult times. And some people are just more psychologically tormented than others, and it kind of is just a very peaceful acceptance of just the full spectrum of just characters, and there's sometimes like in the film, it can be very close to home. Sometimes you watch these characters and it's like, wow, it almost just hurts, but there's just so much going on here that, I mean, the atmosphere in itself of just the jumble of people around you, it's never overwhelming. It would never feel socially draining to watch this film. The crowd is always massive. It's just the way the characters are very particular. You're just it's almost a mystery box of like, the question is always, where is this going? Where is this taking you through? This is really just a glimpse of, this is just what was exactly in the year mid-70s America, which is depression, post-hippie depressionism. A lot of buildup, but people were certainly able to live together in a very sweet way, and that's what Robert Altman was really wanting to capture. Look how nicely people can get along here, and every moment of it. And I will say, like, rewatches, like, so a lot of these songs really do ramble on, and I know that, and I've certainly heard some criticisms lately that can be a frustrating thing to endure. But I feel like it's not at all, because I feel like it's just sort of in a drift. Even if I don't always love the songs, it's the nature of the character. Because the fact is, there's a lot of like feeling overconfident and then feeling pathetic in the long run for being overconfident. That's kind of like a big thing going on with one of the characters, as they are just on this kind of like, again, building up all these songs, all this energy, and then you get out there and feel bad. This is one of the biggest insecurities ever. So that's what I mean by comfortably close to home. It's like, literally, I'm at that dilemma right now of just, okay, I have a lot of songs, but I'm like seriously trying to figure out exactly how to say all this in a way that will hold up intuitively long term. I mean, that's just the way. And I'm trying to do it like in that original way. I'm, literally, I think the band Radiohead probably was my biggest influence, even at this point, for the sound I'm going for ultimately. But yeah, just want to make it dark, weird, moody, mysterious, a lot of that stuff, basically, to have ultimate lighthearted. This film kind of captures a lot of, and again, hey, I'm rambling here, because that's, again, I certainly have learned in time, maybe a lot of people see a dirtbag in the musician because they maybe smell something is pathetic about him, but it's ultimately up to the dirtbag to be a good man and be like, well, there's nothing wrong here. I'm actually doing something that will matter here. So, you just can't care about people and their opinions anymore whenever you see things that way eternally. But the way the atmosphere here is just so effortless, because the way, you don't know what's going on exactly, but there's always this deep-seated motive of just what it is to have loose energy, but always interpreting everything around you in a very deep way. It's like basically coming to your own conclusions in a very hazy and bizarre kind of atmosphere. I mean, the way that America was just more and more confused throughout the 70s. I mean, again, it's just, but the way this film kind of builds, it's not draining in the slightest. That's what makes Robert Altman genius. You watch his best films, and there's zero energy that's draining. It's always focused and always feels intentional. I think modesty, again, it's modesty for sure. I think he's certainly the biggest cinematic equivalent to a lot of what Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell was conveying in their music. I certainly feel a lot of this in Robert Altman. Yeah, Nashville. I mean, he just has such a great vision of America. This is a bit of a natural laid-back dream here. I love the good moments, and then the bad moments. It's just you can learn how you can take in so much from that, and that kind of contributes to this admittedly cheesy life lesson perspective. But I think Robert Altman low-key has a life lesson perspective on, kind of a lot of ways. That is cheesy and naive in the city, but but he can do it. If you could just walk it your way, it just kind of bring it out as like an impersonal love. That's kind of the basis in the long run. It just feels like like all the characters are just so in their element that you never really know when the camera is exactly going to go next. But this is quite perfect. You have all these conversations going on, and just everything just really feels complete here. I really love this film. It really is special in the way that another album he was heavily influenced by, Robert Altman, is the album "There's a Riot Going On" by Sly and the Family Stone. That's one of my top 20 favorite albums ever, because that sound is perfect. Everything that was capturing about sort of like breakdowns happening in the hippie scene, everything about the mental breakdowns going on by the band that was just going so hard in the sex and drugs in 1970 that it blew his head out the door, basically, and everything fell apart, literally, because everyone went so crazy in the band. There's so much insanity. This is one of the most unique portrayals of insanity, one of the most raw ones that certainly is as strong as like the best jazz albums, I think, in the end. But it's funky, it's ultimately groovy, but it's very, very like low-key depressing in the sense of like, whoa, man, that is far. But yeah, I mean, this is a perfect film. That certainly also, it feels just like so important to a lot of the come in the 1970s, such as like the character of Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver, which is the ultimate lonely man goes crazy. So you have that in that particular character, that. And this is just one of those films. Like all the characters are just really adding up to something cohesive. And yeah, it's a perfect film, I would say, at the end. Again, it's almost like tear-inducing in moments, too. I feel like you watch it, you just feel like all this is happening, all this chaos and riot energy is happening, and you just have to almost sit back and take in accepting defeat a lot in this film. That's what makes it something kind of special, too. It takes you through the full spectrum of the moods, wide and dark, like, and it just kind of ends in just, like, neutrality. And that's certainly, I feel like low-key Robert Altman is inspired by a lot of Japanese directors, particularly like Akira Kurosawa. I really feel a lot of that influence coming into Robert Altman and what he's kind of seeing here. Um, yeah, I mean, that's a very tear-inducing film, while it's also just very like neutralizing. I think a lot about 1975 stuff like the album "Wish You Were Here" by Pink Floyd has this feeling too, where it's just neutrality in the face of melancholia in the most pure sense. I think that's an emotion that can easily be oversaturized, but whenever it's pure, it kind of becomes stable. It's stable. I think that's what I kind of realized is the essence of purity. Stability lies consistent in that. But this was a film that's just, yeah, it's ahead of its time. Even the move, even when the stuff feels dated, it's intentional because it's trying to reflect. It's not at all trying to say, "Oh, the music's gonna be great." Oh, there's a great song. I really do love the song "I'm Easy." Keith Carradine. That's quite a beautiful song. That's a great scene because you have all these women there and they don't know, none of them know which one is about them. Like about 10 of them think it's about them, which kind of is a low key subtle. Like you're like, yeah, that can be the chaos sometimes. You feel like you do something and then a woman's gonna be like, woman could come around and be like, "Oh, you're thinking about me." It's like, "Oh no, I was thinking about something else entirely," and that would hurt their feelings. So that's cold hearted. So, that stinks. That would stink to be around that for a very long period of time. This is about the most humane film I've ever seen, and I really love just the passion and love that lives in this film. Yeah, this is quite Robert Altman's ultimate hippie expressionism of it's all right, man, even when it's not all right, basically. That's the '70s for you. That's I think a lot of the timeless foundation that's really holding up now. Truly, I mean, it's like a lot of it don't make sense, but you just kind of make your own sense of it in the end. You can, and that's fulfilling. So yeah, that's Robert Altman's Nashville. That is one of my all-time favorite films. So I highly, highly recommend this film to anybody. Just like I was about any Robert Altman classic. He's a director that really deserves even more attention. He's a cult status director, but he deserves like all the praise, man. Like the same praise that Francis Ford Coppola gets. Robert Altman's like that. So yeah, highly recommend checking this out.